Well, our subject for this morning, guys, before showing my slide, is about software documentation, no? So as we all know, when we say documentation, this is putting into writing some essential or highly important information for the purpose of preserving the information. That's one. Number two is securing it. Okay, number two is securing the information. And number three is accessing or future access. And number four is sharing. And as we all know, guys, documentation has been a practice since mankind evolved or since mankind existed, no? As we all know, documentation, people before the early ages, stone ages, just to be, uh, a little bit of the topic. They write on stones, they write on cave walls, they write on bark of trees. So they document the information that is important to them in a lot of ways. They also use trees or leaves of trees. Now, as software engineers, guys, okay, so I will call you now as future software engineers. So, would you like that? Are you excited to be software engineers one of these days or in the future? So, let me repeat, documentation per se is the recording of valuable information for preservation, for security, for access, and for sharing in the future. Because as software engineers, you're going to do that. Okay, not only as future engineers, but as well as early on at this point in time, being students, you are already practicing documentation. Tama? Do you remember the title proposal that we just did? Lahat kayo, di ba? Gumawa ng title proposal. That is one form of documentation already. What we try to document is we started with a format, a template, tama, that we provided you early on, me and Ma'am Santa Ana, so that we will have a common standard or a standard to follow. Okay. Now, as you can see, the template that we use for your title proposal brings in uniformity and standardization. Kumbaga, at our end, as your professors, we didn't have a hard time approving, reading, understanding, and analyzing all your proposals. Why? Because they all came in one single format. So meaning to say, when we talk about documentation, standardization is highly important, in which that will be one of our topics to discuss using our presentation material. No? Okay. And as well, you've been asking before that, sir, what are we going to do after the proposed title, approval of the proposed title? So we inform you about chapter 1, chapter 2, 3, 4, and 5. So those chapters are also examples of documentation. So meaning to say that will only prove that being a student, you are already practicing documentation. Okay, what is that documentation all about? It's all about your topic or your research or the software you are trying to build. All right. So meaning to say, early on, that started with the conception. Conception meaning you started to think, what is the title of my software? What is the area that I want to work on? Will it be about security, games, or business systems, or e-commerce? Like I have seen proposals about what they call this, padala online or sari-sari store online or for deliveries, food for delivery. So those are e-commerce projects. We serve documentation as well. Okay, now let's move on. So these are the topics that we are going to cover, starting with the, well, I introduced already, and some documentation requirements. This documentation requirements pertains to what are the essential or important guidelines, no? Like I said, being a student, a nice example is yung ating title proposal. We required you guys to document it using a particular template, no? So that's a requirement for a documentation. And another is we required you to come up with chapters 1 to 2. It's just that it will be submitted not this trimester but the coming trimesters. So process and product documentation also. So processes, we are going to discuss this one a little later, as well as the product. Product meaning the software that you're going to build. Okay. So as I discussed, guys, I'm going to relate it to the project that you are going to build or to accomplish as software engineering student. So I'll be referring to your title proposals, to your chapters 1 and 2, to the prototype you're going to build or final product that you're going to accomplish at the end of this trimester or the trimesters to come. So document quality, of course, when we talk about quality, this pertains to the standardizations, no? So just to make it more presentable, more readable, meaning it will be more effective as a document if it uses uniform and good quality. And standards as well, like standard templates, standard formats. We cannot have our own standard. If we work with people, okay, we work with groups, we work with some international standard, we have to conform with a particular norm or guideline to follow. Why? This will enhance or bring in better communication among other people, not only within a locality but international especially. All right. So document preparation here. How we need to prepare the document. Is it really easy or hard to prepare a document? Well, if you are going to ask me, by the way, I'm a freelance software or system analyst. That's my first uh, other job before I went back to academe. That's why I'm talking with you guys right now. But I'm also a freelance system analyst. So if you are going to ask me, document preparation is not an easy job. It's not a something like a walk in the park. No, it requires a lot of diligence, meaning uh, it requires a lot of perseverance and patience. So as I was saying, software documentation is not an easy job, but it's very doable. All it needs is a lot of patience, dedication, and there are a lot of softwares naman. Being technical people like you guys, we are all technical people. There's a lot of softwares. So what's the use of being an IT professional or IT student if we are not going to embrace or get the full use of technology to make our lives easier, no? To make our task easier or to facilitate our work. That includes documentation, no? So you may ask me, sir, do we have to be very good in grammar, sentence construction? Okay. Do we need to recall our English 101? Do we need to be have a typing speed of a fast typing speed? Hindi naman. Not necessarily, guys. Okay? Not necessarily. These items that I mentioned, there's always a way of getting, getting help. Okay? If not from your peers, if not from your superiors, there's a lot of materials available online even, okay, that will help us with our tasks as uh, documentation, as far as documentation is involved or is concerned, no? Okay. Another thing, guys, is we have this, when you apply for a job in the future, let's imagine that this will be your last. Do we have here graduating students? Let me know. Do we have graduating students? Hello, guys. Is there anyone? Do we have
Yes.
graduating students already?
Yes,
We
sir.
have
For this.
some?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay, we have. I think I hear voices, no? So sooner you will be applying for IT positions, okay? And then maybe you will encounter this position that's something like it says documentation specialist. Documentation specialist. So maybe this is this new to you? Is this your first time to hear that position?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, okay. It's been in the industry for a long time. Okay, I mean for a decade now. It's been in the industry already. Documentation specialist. What is this all about? Okay, to be a documentation specialist, if you are in the circle of IT practitioners, there are some requirements. You should be a computer science or IT related graduate for you to be a documentation specialist. Okay, meaning to say you must be a computer science or graduate of Bachelor of Science in Computer Science or BSIT or BS Computer Engineering and so on and so forth. Why? You know, guys, maybe you are thinking that your first stepping stone as early or fresh grads is computer programmer. Okay, that's a common idea. Yes, I agree. That's what you want, I think, no? Computer programmer. However, during the course of programming, as we all know, software engineering, it will all start from data gathering, planning, and then design, and then coding, no? All right. So we are not going to focus only on coding or making programs as programmers. There will be time that during the process of programming, you're going to do documentation. There's no escape. There's no exceptions. Na, sasabihin nyo, no, I will not do documentation because I only do codes. I only do programs. I will never do documentation. No. Documentation is already part and parcel, or it goes hand in hand with whatever nature of job you have in the IT practice. Okay? And most especially, when you write codes, when you write programs, that is already one type of documentation. All right? So when you write, when you type, when you do some short or long codes, that's already an example of documentation. It's just that this documentation will be put into proper standard, will be compiled, will be saved, stored in proper versions, so that for future reference, just for the sake of organization, safekeeping, and uniformity when we share it with other or with our colleagues. All right. Okay. Let's move on. Document storage for number 7. So as I said, when you document, after making a very nice and effective document of your source code or of your user's manual or of your guidelines, you need to save it somewhere that is well secured. Okay, which is limited. Limited access meaning not everyone must be able to access it because as a company policy, there are some restrictions and that's given, that's understandable naman. Okay, just to run down through this one, so we're going to discuss the reasons for software documentation. I think I have mentioned some already, why we need to document, but we are going to do be technical a little bit, no? What are the standard ways of documentation softwares as well as the types, right? And ways to implement software documentation. So process and good ideas. Processes meaning these are the steps, no? Or these are the procedures. It could be described in images or symbols or some case tools, which we're going to discuss later. Okay, good ideas. Good ideas meaning these are your designs. Designs which is, well, this is different from company to company, no? Okay. So the general requirements for all software documentation. General meaning this is almost uniform to all people practicing IT. Okay, they do documentation with some requirements, whether you are working abroad or local, with whether you are IT or CS. As long as you belong to the IT circle, these are the common requirements that we need to comply with when we document. So it says should provide for communication among team members. Exactly. I underline the word communication. We can never work in a group, or we can never be a team player if we cannot communicate effectively, right? Am I right? Do you agree with me, guys?
Yes, sir.
You agree?
Sir.
Or you're sleeping already?
Yes, sir.
Sir.
Uh,
We agree, sir. We agree.
okay, agree. So communication,
Yes,
communication.
sir.
All right, communication. This is the universal secret. Okay, universal secret of better relationship. Okay, relationship that also applies to your job, future job, or to your co-students or co-members. As you know, you're going to work in a team that started already some weeks or months ago. No, your title proposal, you have it's composed of three members. So communication starting or early on should be done or practiced already. Okay, at this point in time. So that will be carried over until you perform professionally. So it says communication among team members. Okay, that's given. Another is it should act as an information. I'm sorry for that. Okay, should act as an information repository. What is repository? So this is simply a storage. Okay, repository meaning a storage. Okay, so with respect to documentation, we are trying to uh, save or to store information. When we say information, guys, let me put this one very clearly. When we say information, there's a difference between information and data. Okay, so when we say information, these are already processed data. They already convey a meaning, right? So these one are already validated. We are going to assume information should be validated data or validated facts. So these are facts, meaning to say it's not proper for us to store unvalidated data. Okay, so we are going to preserve validated, truthful, useful information to us or to our company in general. Okay, so next is should provide enough information to management. Okay, so it says enough information to management. So enough in the sense that when we document, guys, actually there's no stopping. When you document now, a little later you're going to revise it because you found something that needs to be updated or revised. Okay, so it's a continuous process. So it says here enough. For the meantime, at this point in time, it could be enough. Yes. So meaning to say our ultimate goal is to update it. Okay, update it as often as possible or to make it enough as much as possible. Okay, and which is that will be for the consumption of the management. Well, you as students now, you will be the management, kumbaga. You will be the managers of your information. Things that you store or you save now, like your title proposals, approved title proposals, you are saving them and updating them if there are some requirements by your teachers, so that you will know how to move on. Some of you even ask me some emails or provided emails asking what to do next, like when to do chapter one. So those are management actions. So you acting as the manager, you are asking how to what to do next. Okay, what is the next step after the approved title proposal? Okay, so those are management actions. Examples: being a student at your level. Okay, should describe the users how to operate and administer the system. Okay, so this is a little bit technical already, in which this pertains to finished products. Examples of finished products are, again, I will refer to your project or to your thesis or your softwares that you're going to develop, okay, for the coming trimesters. So part of that, when you submit your program, working program, okay, along with it, or it will go something that will go with it is a user's manual. Okay, that will describe how to operate your softwares. Okay, user's manual which will guide the end users or the consumers in general. That's one. Number two is your software must also include a documentation that will describe how an administrator will be able to operate your system. Kasi, you know guys, a software, it does not only cater to end users. A software can also be used by an administrator, or shall we say, some sort of a higher form of user that controls the access, that controls the homepage, that controls some aspects about the software, which a regular user must not be doing, no? Must not be or limited or constrained or not allowed to do. All right. So with that note, you must have a separate guideline that will instruct the administrator or admin. We call it nowadays admin. Okay, instruct him or her how to operate your software. Okay, so those are expectations. Okay, so specifically, guys, we have here software products. Since we are engineers or you will be future engineers, you will be dealing with, software engineers. You will be dealing with software projects. Okay, it says here, documentation should be created. Let me highlight that. Uh-huh. Okay, it's okay. Documentation should be created prior to any code being written. Now, what is being talked here or referred to here are design documents. Meaning to say, guys, let us put it this way. When you build a house, you cannot go straight, especially a good house, meaning a strong, structured house, no? You cannot go immediately in, putting in the post, putting in the electrical wirings, and then the roof and all. No. The first thing that we do is to come up with a plan, a blueprint, which is being done by architects. Okay. What is the purpose of that? Just to ensure strength, just to ensure standardization, just to ensure proper documentation and reference. Reference in the sense that in the future that this house will be renovated or there will be some extended structures in the future. Where are they going to go? What particular document that they need to refer to? Diba, hinahanap nila? They are looking for the plan. Do you agree, guys? Do you agree with me? Okay. They look for the plan or the blueprint so that the future architect will know if what's the structure, how this house came about, where are the layouts of the post or electrical, okay, electrical, or we have the connections, piping connections, we have the gas connection, pipe connection, water line connection. So they are all documented in the architectural plan of the house. The same concept applies, guys. The same concept applies when we build software or we involve in software projects. Before we start coding or starting with the programming per se, we should have a proper planning. We should have a good what they call this structural design. What examples of design? Okay, imagine that you're going or trying to build a a website, no? A website. Okay? Although website nowadays is very facilitated or easy to use, easy to build using the available free online website creation softwares. No? However, before doing that, you should have a concept. You should have a purpose. You should have at least an idea how the main page should look. How or what are the buttons? What are the color system? Okay, how are they going to be organized in the main page? So that by the time that you are going to use the software to come up with your initial homepage design, you already have some sort of guideline or pattern or a guide on how to go about with the design. Okay, so that will ensure proper and better procedures in step by step uh, task that you're going to perform. Next is user's manual. So documentation should continue after the code has been implemented. So meaning to say, guys, this is it. So as I was saying early on, before we start with our lesson proper, documentation is always incorporated in any part of the programming or software engineering process. The earliest time, the middle, almost end, or at the end, it will still be exercised like this one, user's manual. All right. Even though you're done with your codes, the program has been running smoothly, it has been tested accurately, tested, verified already. So documentation will not stop there. You're still going to do user's manual. As we have in our previous slide, user's manual will describe how the end users or the consumers will be guided in using your software. As well, the administrators, or we call them the admin users, how they are going to do their administration tasks using your softwares. All of those will be described in the user's manual na sino ang gagawa. Who's going to do this? It's either you guys or you have a documentation specialist, as I was referring to a while ago. Okay? If your company is so structured that when you are a programmer, you will only program, that's very good, that's very nice. But unfortunately, okay, here in the Philippines, that's why we are called the jack of all trades. We almost perform okay, every position in the IT group. If we are programmers, we can be as well documentation specialists. So we can do this as well. Why? Because we are very capable of doing so. Okay, so the two main types of documentation we have, the process and then the product. So let's have the next slide just to describe this one. Okay, here. Used to record and track. So this is very consistent, no? When we do documentation. We used to record and track. You record it, track meaning you need to monitor or you need to update. As we all know, guys, once an information is written, it is an obligation for you who wrote it to update it or to make it updated, correct? We should not be keeping or recording a documentation which is not updated. Otherwise, it will not be a good kind of information. It will be an outdated information, which is that's not good. It will be almost considered as a trash. Okay, we should not be keeping trash, guys, but an information which is essential for development process or essential for management guide to decide and so on. So we need to track it. Track meaning we need to see or verify if it's updated always. Otherwise, we need to update it. All right, some kinds of documentation that needs to be tracked, recorded and tracked. Planning documentation. Okay, this is given. When we say planning, as I said kanina, my example, in building a house or in building a software, we need to make a plan. We need to think of a concept. Isn't it that before coming up with a title, as we all did, we have this activity months from now, before you came up with a title, you you thought of a purpose, diba? What title am I going to work on? Okay, what are my professors asking? Are they asking for some sort of updated or useful title or something some kind of a title that will showcase our talents as programmers, or a title that has an available technological support? Kasi it's hard for us to work on a title in which we cannot find technical support. That will be very, very hard. Okay? So meaning, in that particular time or period, you are already doing planning, no? Which is this one, planning. And then, after some time, after conceptualizing, you documented your plan, in which the end product is a proposed title written in a template, written in a format that we prescribe, that we provided. Okay, so that is a similar example. However, this one, cost and funding. Okay, of course, when we work with real projects already, no, not only real projects, you being student, your project, software project will entail or will mean cost also, no? Cost in the sense that you're going to use electricity during your coding, you're going to buy stationaries, you're going to buy or refill your printer ink, okay? So there will be entailed costing costing aspects, okay? However, in the real world, when you will be future engineers or future software developers, costing will be much, much more. You will be dealing with projects that will cost millions, which will be, as you can see here, schedules, no? You will be dealing with projects that will be 2 years in the making or a year or months in the making. However, guys, when we talk about schedules, the current trends or the best practices nowadays in software development is we should be able to finish or create an output as soon as possible. That's the that's the norm nowadays. Okay? Hindi lang sa pandemic tayo may new normal, but sa practices also in software development, we have new normal also as we call it, no? As we have to come up with an output as soon as possible. Why? Clients nowadays, when we say clients, these are the people that asks or that requires our services to do softwares for them. I'm talking about the real world, not let's get away from student life muna. Let's all assume that we are all software engineers already, and you're going to build softwares or applications. Of course, before you build a software, there are requirements, there are needs that you need to conform. What are these needs? People or businessmen, to be specific, requires your services to build for them applications or build for them softwares, and they're going to pay you, okay, in return of your services. Meaning to say, these businessmen, let's take for example, SM. Okay, I'm not promoting SM or Lazada. Lazada will ask for your professional service to build an application which will be incorporated to the Lazada e-commerce. Okay, that will bring in better services to their clients. Now, the Lazada representative will be giving schedules. They may be saying, na, okay, guys, here is the requirement, here is what we need, and then please tell us if you can finish this project in a month or in a month. Okay, so with that you are going to do some sort of bargaining. Okay, you're going to do some sort of technical conversation or technical analysis if it's really feasible or possible to comply with the requirement of 1 month development time. Okay, then after some time you may say na, sir, we can do that in 2 weeks. Okay, instead of 1 month, we can do that in 2 weeks. So I said, guys, about schedule, the current trend nowadays is clients or cons are very demanding. Did you get that, guys? They are highly demanding. They want the output as soon as possible. Why? Because they really or badly need it in their businesses, and they are willing to give the best price for you as or the best talent fee we call it, as long as you can provide what they need in the soonest possible time. Okay, so don't be surprised that when you work in the sooner in the industry, your leader, we have a lead, we call them leader, no? Every group is being led by a team leader. They're going to give what are the specification of the module that you're going to do. As well, they are going to give you timeline. Timeline meaning they are timeline is will ensure conformity and compliance. Like, okay,